We immediately go there. So my name is Robbertjan Kalff. I am at the Pure conference for the first time. It's also the first time I'm in Prague. I'm very excited to be here. I am what we call a product geek. I really like to develop products, and I've done so for more than 20 years. Many years that has been with Elsevier, so I was a product manager for Science Direct. I was the product owner in the team that started Scopus. I developed products for corporate R&D, worked on article recommenders, and currently I'm the business owner of SciVal. So that choice between Scopus and SciVal, yeah, it hurts on two sides and it feels good on two sides. So I thought that was interesting. So today I'd like to share mainly two things. The first item is integrating data from Pure with data from SciVal. And the second one is show the topics that are contributing to the Sustainable Development Goals as they are set by the United Nations. And I'll start with a quick introduction of SciVal. Everything is about people, so this is the team behind SciVal. The majority of the people are the engineers, and together with our data science team, they're based in the United States. The UX designers, the marketeers, and the product people are mainly based in Europe and mainly in Amsterdam. So SciVal in a nutshell. We pre-compute 280 trillion data points on a weekly basis to give customers the flexibility to look at research entities from all angles and to also provide the transparency to look at the underlying data. And our customers use SciVal to visualize the research performance, to benchmark and compare themselves with peers, to identify and develop collaborative partnerships, and to analyze research trends. Today, we measure the research performance of over 15,000 institutions. More than 5,000 of those are corporate companies. We have over 1,250 customers and a very strong presence in the United Kingdom, Australia, Japan, China, and Russia, which is reflected in the session map that you see on the right. So now I'd like to share how customers are benefiting from integrating data in Pure with data in SciVal. Here on the left you see a hierarchy. You're familiar with those, a hierarchy of a university with the faculty and departments and the underlying researchers underneath them. And we've developed a flow that you can use to transfer units from Pure to SciVal. You activate that functionality in the integration tab in your administration module. You select the units of interest, click the transfer ID button and then push that to SciVal. And those units are then visible in SciVal, and you can use those units to, for example, assess the impact of your policy decisions. So here's an example of that. A policy decision can be, we want to stimulate international collaboration. And here you see the two faculties that were pushed to SciVal in relation to the overall university. On the vertical axis is the field-weighted citation impact, which was mentioned earlier. It's an impact based on citations, and it's normalized across domains. And on the horizontal axis, you see the percentage of international collaboration. Now you can plot this over the year and to see the actual changes in these metrics as a result of policy changes. You can also use benchmarking like this to compare your faculty with international or faculty in other universities. You can also use this to get data for other strategic research planning activities. For example, when you want to look at what's the actual research that we are doing. What are the research questions that the teams in our university are working on? And for that, we've developed SciVal topics of prominence. And they are designed to reflect research questions that communities of researchers are working on. They're quite granular. We have about 100,000 of them, and we looked at the total citation graph of Scopus and identified through direct citation patterns the clusters that represent the research questions. So in a way, researchers define the topics by their citation behavior. And within those topics, you can identify whether researchers at your university are key contributors, are at the frontier of your domain, and you get a great overview of where you're really leading specific topics. We have about 40% overlap in Pure and SciVal customers. And in the graph on the left, you see it's about 6,000 units that have been transferred from by Pure customers into SciVal. So that's within about a year since we introduced this flow. On the other side, you see the flow the other way around. So it's the usage by Pure customers of SciVal APIs. It's quite stable. It's about 200,000. At Kalff, I see that you're pulling in SciVal data into Pure. I'm very keen to talk with more of you to understand in detail what you use it for. We've been investing quite a bit in building out our APIs, so there's a lot that you can get through our APIs, and I want to discuss what else we can do on that front. So next week we'll release something that we are quite excited about. We have mapped the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. We've mapped the research output and impact to each of those goals, so that customers, you can identify the areas where you're really contributing to the goals, see who are the teams that are actually contributing to individual goals, and look at the success of the collaborations of those teams. So let's look at the first, no poverty. The first SDG, I filtered the last 5 years. There's about 12,000 articles in this SDG, written by 27,000 authors, and the field-weighted citation impact is about 6% above the world average. The articles are mainly published in social science and economics journals. Now let's look at what are actually the research questions that are contributing to this SDG. And the main one is about microfinance. The other ones are school and enrollment and donor countries. The microfinance one is about what's the impact of microcredit by microfinance institutions. Do you have any idea which organization is the top contributor in terms of scholarly output for the no poverty goal? It's the World Bank. So the World Bank is the top contributor in terms of scholarly output, followed by the University of Oxford and followed by Harvard University. So how have we done this? So we looked at the themes and the goal targets of each of these goals. And our data science team translated that in algorithms for each of them. And those algorithms we use to develop research areas in SciVal. One of the design principles that we have is transparency, and we apply that in this case as well. So each of these algorithms is documented, the methodology is documented, and they are available, openly available on Mendeley data. And we'll also launch a website where you and the community can provide us with comments and feedbacks and to collaborate to make this even better. So last evening, Professor Bonacorsi and I discussed about the opportunity to add the user group work that he mentioned yesterday in his keynote. And I think we agreed that we have an interest to collaborate on that, and I at least am very excited to do that, because I believe that then we can build on that to make this even better. So I'd like to show an example of how you can possibly use this. And the example is for the use case to demonstrate the impact of the societal impact of research. And I'd like to take Wageningen University as an example. Looking at zero hunger, the zero hunger goal, which the last 5 years about 100,000 publications, a field-weighted citation impact of which is 10% higher than the world average. Wageningen University has a very high contribution in terms of scholarly output. They're ranked they're number 3. The Chinese Academy of Sciences is above, and the United States Department of Agriculture also. We promote the responsible use of metrics, which means that you should never take a decision based on one metric, but on multiple, and you should combine it with peer review, just like Kalff is doing. So we show multiple metrics, and we have the tools to make it easy to compare yourself against peers. So what I've done here is, again, I have the field-weighted citation impact on the vertical axis, the collaboration percentage on the horizontal axis, and you see that Wageningen University is the red bubble. I think you can't read that in the back. So Wageningen University is the red bubble on the right top, and the Chinese Academy of Sciences is the green one. So you see that Wageningen, the impact, the field-weighted citation impact, is really high, and the percentage of collaboration is really amazing. That's really really high. So we kind of established that we have that Wageningen University has a big impact in this sustainable development goal. And now let's look at what are actually the research questions that Wageningen is focusing on in this goal. And so there's a number: crop models, mineral fertilizers, nitrogen footprint. So let's take the second one, mineral fertilizers, because there's a very big publication share. The scholarly output is relatively high, and a high field-weighted citation impact. The topic is about using local fertilizers to drive food self-sufficiency in Africa. I memorized that, so that's why how I was looking at the ceiling. It's a tough one for me to memorize. But that's what the topic is about, right? So we've established that the contribution of Wageningen for the SDG is pretty high. We have an overview of what are actually the research questions that the researchers are working on. And then because of the transparency, we show the actual researchers that are working on these research questions. So that gives you the opportunity to get in touch with the researchers and to work on case studies that you can use to demonstrate the impact. Right? You identify excellence, you get a sense of what are really the topics and what are the people that we then can work with to come up with the case studies that are generally used to really demonstrate or showcase the impact that you have. I saw 2 hands. We've given a couple of universities access to the tool. We are going to release the first iteration next week on Tuesday. We'll continue to iterate on it, and I'm very keen to talk to you and to hear whether you see benefits of integrating this kind of data in, for example, your Pure portal. And then when there is interest, I'm interested to work with you to find out the best way to actually do that. I'll be around, but also my colleagues will be able to connect you with me if you have that interest. I was asked to leave 10 minutes for questions. I think it's a little bit less, but thank you for your attention, and happy to answer any questions.
Awesome, we're back on track. Thanks. Questions for Robbertjan? Anybody who's thinking about would like to use this in the portal, for example?
Yeah, sorry, just perhaps a show of hands. So the KAUST institution was very explicit about the SDGs that they're going to focus their research on. For the institutions here, are you as explicit as KAUST is saying we're going to be focusing on the SDGs? So I see Yuri's hand up, so the VU Amsterdam. Yeah. So it is an explicit idea to have it.
Yeah, I think on that, as we all know, there's a lot of discussion about societal impact. There's a lot of desire to show societal impact. I think the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals are potentially very great project to help us describe that. I also realize it is early days, so there are different methodologies that are being used to map research to the goals. This is one. I think I forgot to mention that Times Higher Education also used this data for their innovation rankings. They used about data for 11 Sustainable Development Goals. We will have all 17 available. And we believe that it's very important to collaborate and to try to combine different methodologies to really get to the quality that is trusted by the community. That this is an indicator that the community cares about. So I do realize I'm a product guy, so this was a big demo, and it looks nice. But I do realize this is early days, and that we need to iterate a lot with the community to build on it.
Thank you, that was really interesting. And this has a lot of resonance for the UK, because I'm not sure how many people in the room are from the UK, but quite a lot of the money our UK institutions get back from our Research Excellence Framework now, 6% of that is now pegged through a stream called the Global Challenges Research Fund. And that can only be used for activity that constitutes overseas development assistance, and it can only be used with DAC list countries. So this seems to be quite a powerful way for UK organisations using their GCRFQR to find the organizations they need to collaborate with overseas. So I think that's a really interesting piece of work that you've been doing here.
Thank you.
I stepped in a little late, so I'm sorry if this question's already been asked or answered. But for some of the SDGs are pretty narrow and easily defined. Others are very broad, and it's kind of hard to determine where the edge of the field or the edge of study might be.
Yeah.
So can you talk a little bit about kind of the methodology used to maybe handle some of those broader, fuzzier SDGs in terms of picking out the right publication set for them?
Yeah. Yeah, I'll park SDG 17, which is about collaboration, so that's immense. So the first iteration of our algorithms actually returned a very large data set. And when we showed this to the different domain experts, it was clear it was too broad. So the next step that we took is we looked at the themes and specifically also the goal tasks. They're quite descriptive in the targets. The targets that will be monitored, and we updated the algorithm based on that, and that we have a much smaller data set now. So with these things, it's always a trade-off between the recall and the precision. So with the testing that we did where we are today, I think we are pretty good on the precision, and we did have the feedback from several universities that we can release that a little bit more, because the recall is more difficult to extend the recall, whereas you can filter yourself. But that's going to be the balance, and that will have to come from the collaboration with the community to get that balance right. Chocolates.
Okay, thanks, Robbertjan. Can we have another applause?